Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Broadcasting Network. This is the Tech Educator Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Tonight, we're going to be talking all about podcasts, podcasting, and how you can create your own podcast for yourself or your classroom. We have a fantastic panel tonight. It's all going to be talking about great things that they've done with podcasts or podcasting. And I want to start off today by introducing from Shake Up Learning, Miss Casey Bell. Casey, how are you tonight?
I'm great.
Thank you so much for joining us.
That's my introduction.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, so I'm coming to you from the Dallas, Texas area. That's my y'all. So I say y'all. I speak the Texas lingo here, but no. So I'm a digital learning consultant in the Dallas area and beyond. I also have the shakeuplearning.com website, blog, and started this new venture with my buddy Matt Miller, who's also on with us tonight. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much for being on, and let's shift that over to Ditch That Textbook author Matt Miller. Matt, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. Author of Ditch That Textbook. Now you've got a wonderful podcast we're going to be talking about. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt.
Well, I've been a Spanish for 11 years and wrote the book Ditch That Textbook and the Ditch That Textbook blog. Kind of doing that all full time now and doing fun projects like this podcast that we're going to be talking about and trying to back the crummy connection out here in rural West Central. So that's kind of the status update, I think, in a nutshell.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. We have one more guest making his return to TeacherCast from the great state of California, Mr. Brent Cooley. Brent, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am in Southern California, where it is a balmy 50 degrees right now, but not like the 4 inches of snow that or was it 4 feet of snow that you got?
Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I am currently an elementary assistant principal. No, I'm sorry. I'm an elementary principal. I used to be an assistant principal. Year 4 as a principal, I spent 15 years teaching 4th and 5th grade, and I love sharing, which is why I'm thrilled to be here. I like to share my website, brentcoley.com. I blog, but it's been a long time since I blogged, but just started a new podcast, which I'd love to talk about tonight.
And we're looking forward to hearing about that. We still have a few more co-hosts to talk about. Mr. Josh, who's coming off of an amazing weekend where his Patriots, they're going to someplace special, aren't they, Josh?
They are. They're going to Houston. That's exciting. But what might be more exciting is that on Sunday morning, I woke up to find that a nearby town, 45 minutes away, had the Nintendo Classic Edition in stock. Finally was able to go and get one after 2 months.
You know, I thought I saw something on Facebook about that. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an owner of a Nintendo Classic in the year 2017.
It's cool because when I was a kid, I grew up with the regular Nintendo, and my wife didn't. So she missed that entire experience growing up. So it's fun to have her experience all this stuff for the first time and to kind of sit back and then have to hold back all of the want to grab the controller because she's struggling quite a bit.
Well, and Josh, like you can frame it any way you want, but what you did was you found an entire game vocabulary that you had that your wife did not yet have, and you were like, "Ha, I can win this."
We'll see how long that lasts.
Right?
Very, very cool. Want to bring on from the great state of Massachusetts, where I believe the Patriots are from, Miss Jennifer Judkins. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Good to see you guys tonight and have some of our favorite guests on the show. Looking forward to hearing all about this new podcast.
Now, Jen, last week we did an entire show all about starting a website and changing your blog around. Do we have any updates yet on teachingforward.net?
Well, it's still in the works, Jeff, but I am determined to get this finished by the end of the month. So I'm running out of days. So I'm hoping that this weekend might be time for launch. So hopefully by this time, when we're on our show next, the next broadcast, I'll be able to let everyone know that we're live on the new site.
So by the time the Patriots are hoisting the trophy, we should be changing the domain over.
Exactly. I think those things will definitely happen at the same time.
And speaking of changing over at the same time, Mr. Sam Patterson, how are you today?
Great. Other than that segue makes me nervous.
Now, Sam, you recently started a podcast. Tell us a little bit about it.
When I finished my book, Programming in the Primary Grades Beyond the Hour of Code, I started the podcast Beyond the Hour of Code, which was a nice opportunity for me to kind of understand more about the work I was doing by putting it into another format and sharing it. And since then, it's been just kind of an ongoing opportunity to have conversations with a lot of really interesting people who are doing great work in that field.
I think we got everybody on the panel. Wow, we have a great show today. Of course, there's several great ways to reach out and be a part of our show each and every week. We love it when you find us on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave me a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. Email us at feedback@teachercast.net. And of course, you can check out all the great stuff on our iTunes and YouTube channel over at teachercast.net/audio and teachercast.net/video. I want to say thank you to everybody out there who's watching our audience live. We have a really large live audience today over on teachercast.tv, as we are every day. I want to give a big shout out to our friends Peggy and Matthew Passy, who's out there, great podcasters in their own right. We want you guys to ask any questions to our panel today. And you guys, I want to start off today with a little bit of a story. I've been recently getting these text messages on my phone from LinkedIn, and they keep coming up saying, congratulations on your anniversary. And I've been getting these, and I'm wondering, what is the deal with this? Why am I getting over and over again, congratulations on your anniversary? And the other day, I finally got fed up and said, I'm going to check LinkedIn to see what anniversary are they talking about. And it actually recently has been my 6-year anniversary for podcasting. And I guess I had to originally put that one into LinkedIn. And that kind of got us thinking about the show and the topics. And I want to open this up here, but how did you get into podcasting? And again, if you're in our live audience, we'd love to hear from you. But Brent, let's start with you here. Tell us a little bit about your podcasting journey. How did you get into it? How did you get involved? What made you pick up the microphone?
I went to a session on podcasting. Geez, I was pulling up my website to try to see when. I want to say way back in like 2007, I think. On podcasting, I was totally hooked. I came back. I nearly bought a Mac like on the spot because the GarageBand thing completely hooked me. And honestly, Tony Vincent, Tony Vincent is like my virtual mentor. So if you're watching, thank you, Tony. He had so many resources online and got me podcasting. We had something called ColeyCast where my students did about every 3 to 4 weeks, we would do little broadcasts on what we were learning in class. So if it was the solar system, for example, one group would talk about Jupiter, one group would talk about Saturn, and so on. And we broadcast it, and it was sweet. I mean, the kids loved it. They loved seeing their work in iTunes. I mean, talk about engagement and real world stuff, just showing them, hey, here's your stuff, guys. That was awesome. And now that I've been out of the classroom for 6 years, I've really missed that. I do a monthly broadcast to my parents on YouTube, but I wanted to get back into the audio podcasting. So I just started a brand new one literally like a week ago. So that's called Teaching Tales.
And where do we find out more information about that?
You can find out information about all of it on my website at brentcoley.com. I'm on Twitter at Brent Coley. That's BrentColey. There's a podcast page. It's in iTunes, Google Play. Basically, the new podcast is all about storytelling, sharing stories. If you guys like me, I mean, I love listening to stories. If I'm in church on Sunday mornings and the pastor stops in the middle of the sermon and he starts to tell a story, I lean forward. It's like, oh my gosh, storytelling helps people remember things. We're all in education. We all have a zillion stories to tell. That's what I'm looking to do with this podcast, is bring on a different guest each time and literally just tell me a story. Tell our listeners a story and what you learned from that experience, and just to hopefully entertain and inspire and encourage educators. So that's what I'm looking to do with the new podcast.
You know, the neat thing about podcasting is not only are there almost 800,000 of these things, but you can find them in every topic, every size, anything that you want. And recently, a new podcast was launched all about, well, let's let the authors and creators of that podcast tell us a little bit about it. Casey and Matt, take it away. Tell us a little bit about a brand new show that just hit iTunes this week.
So Matt and I just launched the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. First episode came out on Monday. We are super excited. This has been something that we have been talking about for a really long time, and we really wanted to make it happen. Felt like there was sort of an opportunity there to do something Google specific. And we have both noticed just through our blog that even though we blog about other things, when we blog about Google, everybody like flocks to it. Those are our biggest posts. And so, we are both really big proponents, I think, of breaking things down into meaningful, practical information. And so we wanted to create a podcast that teachers could listen to, get clear information, and take that away and go try something in the classroom tomorrow. And so that was really our goal. So we're going to have a mixture of things on the podcast. Of course, we'll have some interviews. We'll also share things from our blogs, but we are really excited to share Google news and updates. So we all know how difficult it is to keep up with Google, right? I feel like that's half my job, is just trying to keep up with all of the updates and everything that changes. And so that will be included. But I think one of the things that I am most excited about is the lesson plans that we are asking all of our guests to share. So every guest who comes on will share a Google infused lesson plan of their choosing. And then we're going to turn that into a searchable database. So once we have, enough there, we'll make that available. Of course, every lesson plan will be available as a Google Doc download in the show notes as well. So again, really just trying to reach out to teachers and give them as much as we can. So I hope I didn't steal too much away from Matt. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I think for Casey and I, we've been blogging for a long time, and getting our ideas out there in written. It's just something that I think has kind of come naturally to us. And I'm kind of excited about this because I feel like podcasting it's just a whole different dimension in that we can connect people's voice, obviously, and you get to hear their enthusiasm and their passion and everything. And you get to kind of feel like them. And that's something that I've felt like as a blogger, I try to get that across in my blog posts as much as I can, but there's only so much I think that you can. So that's one thing that I think is going to be just kind of a neat change of pace for both of us. And of course, we'll continue to still share the great stuff that we are able to that I think that probably other people on this panel can that a whole. It's kind of like a little bit of a setting, so to speak, when you're able to share with your voice.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Matt, that the voice is really a very rich data stream. Like there's so much about tone and inflection and this kind of stuff that really communicates a lot in the voice. And a podcast obviously allows you to capitalize on that, and you're not reliant on the reader's imagination for tone, which can be tricky in things like when you're describing what's going on in teaching, because there's a lot of people involved in teaching and a lot of feelings in that room, and you really want to be able to honor all of them.
Whoa. Sorry about that, guys.
And then it's dance party time.
Right.
Dad's calling.
I think too that the audio portion speaks to different learning styles as well. Some people really respond to the podcast format that maybe don't necessarily like to sit down and read it. And we've already had people who are, of course, sharing, they're excited to add it to their workout playlist and things like that. And that's what I do. I love to listen to podcasts, and I love to get to know people and their personality a little bit better that way. So yeah, I think it's a new way to reach teachers for us.
There's of course many great educational podcasters out there, and of course many great educational podcasts. What was that? Anyway, we of course want to give a shout out to all the shows over on the Educational Podcast Network. This program is of course one of those. You can check that out over on edupodcastnetwork.com, edupodcastnetwork.com. Check out the great shows. There's got to be more than 15 shows over there. Chris does a great job. You can of course find him over at Mr. Nessie, and everybody here can check that stuff out. Good stuff happening over there. But let's kind of get to some of these questions as far as how, because many people are tuning in going, well, how do you do this? How do you start? And I always like to say, you don't have to spend money to create a podcast. But if you do, we want to make sure that you're putting the money in the right spot. So,
or chances are you may have already spent the money you need to create your podcast.
Or you might be wearing the equipment, right, Sam, that you use to create your. Now, Sam, what do you what do you have?
This year, my big project has been puppetstelljokes.com, which has turned into a fairly sophisticated video podcast with an audio track and multiple overlaid video tracks, and I do all of it through this phone. Like all of it. I used to do external microphones and whatever. Now I'm recording the voice piece in voice recorder. I, use the camera for everything else, and I don't have a way to export it that I run out of bytes. It's never like, oh, that's, low quality because I did it on my phone. It's amazing.
Now, let me pass this one over to Jen and Josh. What types of equipment do you guys have currently at your homes? Are you recording just on basic microphones? Are you recording on Chromebooks? What do you have? Because you guys are coming through really, really good. Jen, what is that thing you've got in front of you? Remember, this is an audio show.
Yes, I will tell you that I purchased a Snowball microphone, and there's a little Dragon Pad filter that just helps to cut back on some of the background noise and the harshness that can come through a microphone, and I find that to be really helpful. And I have a Logitech HD video camera that I use, but really these are inexpensive and things that I use for other purposes. So making a lot of video tutorials and stuff, these are things that were purchases that I wanted to make for those kinds of things when I'm making training materials for teachers. So they're multi-purpose tools, and I have found that they work just as well when we're doing the show.
Josh, what do you use?
Last spring, sometime, as we were gearing up for TEDx, I was bringing in some different things, and one of them was this little guy who wasn't very much. I think it's like an Olympus something or another. It honestly was like $20, and I didn't end up using it for the event. But I think we noticed sometime last year, I think on this podcast as we were getting ready, that the fan on this laptop, because it's getting older, started to get really loud and was interfering with the built-in mic. So then this has been a savior for being able to continue to do this on this laptop. So yeah, I have not spent a whole lot, but it sounds okay, so that's good.
Brent, what do you got? What do you got going on over there?
Like he mentioned earlier, I use the phone. I mean, the first couple, back when I did it in my classroom, I used a Logitech headset mic. I think I paid $39.95 or something at the time. That worked great. Recorded into Audacity or a GarageBand. Now, like Sam was saying, I just go right into voice recorder, and I'm mixing it now in Camtasia because I have a license of that. But my office at work's got good acoustics, so I literally, my first 2 episodes, I'm sitting on one corner of the desk, the guest is on the other side, and we literally just put the phone right on the desk, hit record, talk, hit stop, done. So,
well, let's kind of go into that. Let's kind of do the Google question, because I get this a lot, and there's a few posts on TeacherCast about this topic. But how do you record a podcast on? And usually that's, how do you record a podcast on a Chromebook? And recently I've been sharing with people to do it on Screencastify, or to do it on Twisted Wave, or to twist it. Let me ask the Google people here, Matt and Casey, do you have a specific app or Chrome extension or something if somebody says, how do I record audio or video using a Chromebook or Google Apps? Let's start with.
You know, I think you named two really good tools right there. The only other thing that I would add to that is if you're looking for a place to host it, one thing that I always like to suggest is to use Audio Boom. If you go to audioboom.com, I always tell people Audio Boom is kind of like to audio what YouTube is to video, in that you have a channel, you can record things to that channel, and then people can go listen to it. So if they're looking for a really easy place to host, you can even record just right off of your embedded mic or a mic plugged into your Chromebook, like a USB mic, and even get pretty decent audio quality there as long as you can do it in one take. So I think that's one way that you can go.
Is Audio Boom free?
Far as I know, yeah. Anything that I've ever tried to do with it is free.
I think it's important here to kind of talk about what we mean by podcast. I know a lot of teachers use the idea of I'm making a podcast when what they really mean is I'm doing an audio recording or I'm using my camera. If you're going to be going out to iTunes, I just believe you have to have some kind of an audio service like a Libsyn or a Blueberry or a SoundCloud, something like that. But if you're a classroom teacher, you can put everything into Google Drive and play it. There's new Google Sites is fantastic, and you can take any MP3 in your Google site, and as long as you change the sharing permissions to be public, you can embed an audio player right on your new Google site, and it sounds fantastic.
That's right, which I think goes further to show that, kind of like what you said earlier, Jeff, you don't have to sink money into this. I mean, if you get a free Google Drive account and you're not getting crushed with all of these hundreds or thousands of downloads, every single day, you can do that, and you can use the embedded mic in the device that you've got. And of course, if you want to make those incremental improvements and try to make your sound a little bit better, kind of take it to the next level. That's the other nice thing about this, is that it isn't video. And with video, if you want to do really, really nice video, sometimes you've got to sink some money into some expensive video cameras. But then again, Jen just talked about the HD video webcam that she uses, and I've got a Logitech one probably similar to hers, and I do a lot of my YouTube stuff or screencasts with the little webcam in the corner. I do it with that too. So you're exactly right. If you use simple tools like Google Drive and some of the stuff that you've already got, then you don't have to sink a bunch of money into it.
Jen, what do you recommend? You're a Google guru over there with a bunch of wonderful things over on teachingforward.net. Jen, what do you suggest as far as audio video?
I think that when I was chatting with some people in the chat section, because I think that, you start off with low cost things that work, and as you outgrow those things, you add some little, gadgets to your Christmas list and whatnot. And so over time, I've collected some things that I certainly could live without, but are nice to have. I use Screencast-O-Matic for most of my video recording stuff. It just is, I pay for a premium version because I use it so much and it's super easy to use. And I've used Camtasia as well, which is a great tool. But I just find that, either of those tools work well. And then I since most of the stuff that I'm recording is videos, I just upload that into YouTube. So that's kind of the workflow that I have.
So one of the other things about doing a podcast, and it's usually the first conversation that I have with people, is what's it going to look like? And they usually look at me like, what do you mean look like? And I say, look, we're talking about your podcasting graphic. Your graphic has to be something that not only can be seen on something the size of an Apple TV, but it's got to look something the size of your thumbnail. And, that's why I got to say, I love the graphic for the Google Tribe podcast because it is a huge G, and when you shrink it down, it looks awesome. Same thing, Sam. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind your podcasting graphic. It looks fantastic no matter what size you're using.
I played with a lot of different things for the Beyond the Hour of Code podcast, and it's tricky because they're long words, so you can't make them very big in any one direction. So it was really just about getting that to be clear and have it be something that, no matter what size you put it at, it looked halfway decent and wasn't, hard to read. Because I think that ultimately you really just want things to be clear if they can't be super cute. But cute is good. I should have used a unicorn.
Brent, tell us a little bit about your podcasting art, because I really, really like the way you have it all designed, and it's really artistic wise. Tell us a little bit about that. Who did you design that?
I actually did. If you guys ever use Pexels.com, Pexels.com is high quality, free, royalty free, non-attribution required photographs. And I wanted to find something along like stories, ideas. So I went with the light bulb, search light bulbs. I found that one. And I did that in Google Drawing. I used that as the backdrop, threw some text over it. That's it. Nice and simple.
I've never heard of that. Pexels. We will have to check that out.
And there's, I mean, it's got like the free ones, and then it's got suggested ones with like Shutterstock and things like that. But there's some pretty good. And the nice thing is you can download certain sizes. So the iTunes, I think it's 1400 by 1400 pixels is the minimum requirement. So I was able to download that photo that I used in 1400 by 1400. So it was already set for me.
We're here today on the Tech Educator Podcast, live on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. over on TeacherCast.tv. Tonight we're talking all about podcasting, how to create one, how to start one. We have some fantastic guests. I want to dive right back into this. We're talking about podcasting artwork. Casey, let me ask you, when you're looking at building your podcasting artwork, what went into it? I mean, on the outside, it's a big G, and then it has your name on it. But you said you worked with a graphic art. I mean, how many different versions did you come to before you settled with that? Or talk a little bit about the fighting and the arguing that you and Matt must have had back and forth.
I don't think we had but one version.
Oh.
We just fell in love with it. She did a great job. I think we had sort of discussed, playing off the Google, although not, infringing on Google and their artwork. So we just wanted it to have something that, that was recognizable and sort of in those googly colors as well. And of course, those colors work well with both of our brands. And so that was something we took into consideration, was just sort of how it would all mesh together. But honestly, I think we lucked out. I think we had someone who was just awesome and gave us exactly what we wanted.
And can I even, to add on to that, when I worked with the same graphic designer for the cover of my book, I think the very first version that she shot me was the version that I kept that actually was on the book. So it's kind of nice whenever you do something like this where you get, multiple options. I think we had a handful of options to choose from, but option number one was the one that we described, and that was the one that we picked.
Matt, would that be the book that's behind your right shoulder there?
Oh, well, look at that.
What would that book be called, Matt? I just want to make sure.
See. Hang on a second. Let me read it. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's called Ditch That Textbook. Yeah, that's right. That's what it's called.
And so I just have to ask here, and Sam, please don't cut me off. Why is this not called Ditch That Podcast? Was that ever discussed?
Oh, Jeff, do you really have to ask that?
Well, yeah.
Oh, well, let us tell the story then, because
oh, yes.
When we first decided to do this, we had some names, and actually Google Teacher Tribe was one of the first names that we had, and we liked it, but we really wanted our audiences to get involved. So we did a Google form and let people submit their ideas. And almost everybody submitted some combination of Ditch That Textbook and Shake Up Learning mishmashed together. So we had Ditch That Learning, Shake Up That Textbook, like every possible, but once you read those words, it didn't really tell the story that we needed it to tell. So we kind of had to go on our own, but that was what it was. But they were very entertaining. In fact, I think we've discussed sort of sharing those on air later down the road as the suggestions that we got from our audience.
Oh my goodness.
But I think that's a great idea to get other people involved to help you name it.
Well, now, there is an emerging market of people who are working their way off of food supplement shakes. And I'm thinking that maybe you could find an audience there.
Yes.
So yeah, we're gonna do Ditch That Puppeteer pretty soon here, and see.
Hey, I got things to do anyway. Whatever.
That's the next title that we're working on, in case you didn't know.
Well, we have you covered on that one, Matt. We're gonna do 50 ways to ditch that puppeteer. Okay, we'll make sure that everything on here is absolutely covered.
It only takes one. Hey, what time is it?
Please. It's an audio show, Sam. Come on. We have, of course, a very, very big live audience. I want to kind of talk a little bit more about classroom stuff. Josh, as a technologist, as somebody who goes into other classrooms, do you have the opportunity to work with teachers making audio, making podcasts, doing these types of things?
Not so much with teachers, but I have worked with classes on having the students actually create their own audio. So that's something that we've done in the past, and having a lot of Chromebooks helps with that, because that used to be a big hang up. If you had to go to the computer lab, well, you don't have a microphone, so you're out of luck. So that has been something that has happened. I went to a great session at Ed Camp Leader this past summer that Joe Sanfilippo had proposed, and if you don't know who he is, he's a superintendent in Wisconsin at a school district in the west side of the state, and he's huge into branding, sharing your story on social media, and podcasting. And that session was awesome and made me feel like, oh, I can go do it. Well, the problem was that Camp Leader was in mid-July. So by the time the school year came around, that excitement I had to actually go and do this had kind of waned a little bit. And now that we're talking about it again, I'm like, it's halfway through the school year and I haven't done this yet. So that's definitely something that I wanted to do more of, and start some kind of a podcast where I do have student and teacher perspectives. And that's something that we can share with our community to hear from the people in the schools about the learning and what's happening in there. So I haven't done a lot yet podcast-ish, but I have worked with students using tools like Twisted Wave to record some audio for different projects.
Jen, how about yourself? Do you have a chance to do any audio recording on in your position?
So yeah, I do quite a bit of audio recording. I would not say that I do podcasting with students, because I think about that as a series around the same topic. And so with students, I do a lot of audio recording, because I think sometimes that helps them to focus. So actually right now I'm working on audio recordings for students that are learning how to, learning about mindfulness, and they've drawn a picture that, is, elicits for them like a peaceful, quiet place, or something that, is helpful to help them relax. And so they've answered some writing prompts, and with those descriptions that they've provided, they're recording that so that they can then play that back for themselves, and, kind of as a self-calming tool for use in school at home. And at home, I'm doing that in conjunction with our school psychologist at the elementary level. So I think sometimes there's a place when just the purity of voice and and the absence of distraction of images and other things can be really helpful and powerful for students.
Brent, as a principal, do you see the use, or do you see a desire of your staff to move into this realm? Could you see podcasts being used as a way to communicate with staff, as a faculty meeting substitute, or perhaps with your community as a parent-teacher conference substitute?
I think it definitely could, for those parents who couldn't make it to do a Google Hangout or Skype call or something like that. I definitely think, as far as a communication tool, I do a monthly video message on YouTube. So it's not a vodcast or whatever you want to call it, but I've found that to be a really good way. I don't do a newsletter anymore, paper newsletter, because nobody reads them. And I've ended up finding out when I was doing my newsletter that virtually everything I was putting in the newsletter was already on our Facebook page, it was already on all of our social media channels. So it was like, you know what? A lot of people would rather listen or watch something than they would read it if they're pressed for time. So it's definitely been something that the parents have responded very well to in my school community.
One of the things that we also get asked about is, where does your podcast go? And I know we've still got a lot of podcasters out there watching on TeacherCast.tv. And let me bring up, Casey and Matt here. Obviously, to ask, where would you like your podcast to go? Your answer is the second episode, right? But where do you see where do you see this going? Like, what's the reason? Is this something that you're going to continue with? Is this to support a particular current project? Like, I know with Sam, he's doing his podcast to support his book. And I've had several podcasting clients that say, we're going to do 8 episodes and that's it. What are you thinking as long-term goals for your show?
For me, I think it just was sort of a natural fit for what Casey and I do, because I think at the heart of our passion in education is really to sort of empower and equip teachers. And it just so happens that we love using Google tools, and so do a lot of our readers. And so I think this is just it's just sort of a natural progression to do this. And yeah, it's our goal to continue doing it. We don't have a book necessarily to promote or anything like that. It just kind of goes along with our mission, and it's just a different place and a different way to reach those same people, or maybe even different people. So it just seemed like a logical fit. Does that seem pretty fair, Casey?
I think so. I think we both kind of have the service mentality here, that we want to serve teachers, and that's really our mission. And so finding new ways to do that, and to reach our audience and expand our audience in different ways. But I think I was pleasantly surprised, probably shocked by what blogging did for me. And both through my own learning, but the people that I've connected with, I would not be here talking to any of you, wouldn't know any of you. I wouldn't know Matt. We wouldn't have gone to the Google Teacher Academy, which that's how Matt and I first met. But I think it's all part of the journey, and I think it's sort of just been so eye-opening, and I have just met and connected with some of the most amazing teachers, and I'm just very blessed to do that. And so I think this is only going to open those doors even further.
And, I'd say in addition to all of that, it's just fun to do something new. I mean, for Casey and I, we've been blogging for at least 3 years. I think in a little less than a month, I'm going to have my 4-year blog anniversary. I can't believe that I've been doing it for that long. And I still love blogging. I still love writing. I'm a writer at heart still, but it's just fun to take on a new project and to learn something new. I mean, that's kind of why we're all teachers, is because we were learners first, and we still love to learn. And this gives us a new thing to learn and a new channel to sort of explore and a new adventure to undertake. So I think those are kind of that's another reason that I love this new project.
And
Absolutely.
Matt, what is the name of that website one more time?
The website for the podcast is googleteachertribe.com.
The other website, Matt.
Oh dear. Are we talking about, there's so many websites, I can't keep up with them all. Is it ditchthattextbook.com?
That would be the one. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. ditchthattextbook.com.
I'm trying to work with you here, Matt.
Thank you. I'm still a podcast rookie, remember?
You're doing fine. This is
okay. Thanks.
You're doing fine. But by the time I see you at ISTE, we'll have everything worked out together here.
Right. I'll be a pro at that point.
You'll be a pro. There's a lot of different things that we could go on here, but I do want to start to wrap up just a little bit. Maybe if you guys can, let's kind of go down the row here and maybe tell me about, either something that has either inspired you to become a podcaster, something that is inspiring, or maybe just give a shout out to your favorite podcast and why. Let's just do a little round robin here. And what we can do is on the way back, we can put all those in our show notes and, make sure everybody has the links for this. Josh, let me start with you. Why did you get into podcasting? What podcasting shows do you like? Anything like that for the good of the community here.
So to be honest with you, I got started on podcasting because Jeff was looking for people to join him on the Tech Educator podcast a couple of years ago. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool. So I want to do that. So thank you, Jeff, because you were my first foray into podcasting. And I haven't gone much further than that at this point. I would love to start my own, but as of right now, I'm not
factoftheday.com.
Perhaps. But I'm not a huge listener of podcasts. So that's something that I know I need to work on because there's so many great ones out there that I'm missing out on. I'm hoping that having a Google Home will help me with that because I can just ask it to play them. But I'm getting there. So that's kind of what I'm working on. So I have to pick Tech Educator as my favorite podcast because not only am I on it and it's great, but it's also one of the only ones that I'm consistently listening to.
Jen, how about yourself?
So I'm a huge podcast listener because I have such a long commute back and forth to work, and it just provides a perfect opportunity for me to learn. And as Casey said, I feel like in our roles as tech coaches, I feel like it's my responsibility to constantly be in front of things and know what's up and coming, so I can present that to teachers and help evaluate the usefulness of different things, or new ideas for a classroom. And so I find it a really great way for me to make good use of that time by listening to podcasts in my drive back and forth. One of my favorite podcasts that is not so much a technology podcast, so I'll offer it up for a variety, is Jennifer Gonzalez has a fantastic blog and podcast, Cult of Pedagogy, and I just find her insight when it comes to classroom management and just great ideas for me and other teachers to be really inspirational.
Brent, how about yourself?
Well, I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was off air or at the beginning, Tony Vincent is the one who got me into podcasting, because I think he had like, gosh, I can't even remember what it was called now. I think he had like the very first classroom podcast, like student created podcast. Right now, as far as like my favorite one, Teaching Keating. If you have not heard of that, Weston Kieschnick and his wife Molly put on a weekly podcast where they take movie or television characters and they have a total informal discussion about how those characters relate to education. It's really good. I mean, they've done Dumbledore from Harry Potter, Snape from Harry Potter, the Peanuts teacher, wow, 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 Sound of Music. I mean, they've done a whole bunch. It's very, very, very good. I would highly recommend that one. Check it out if you haven't already.
Casey, how about yourself?
Well, of course, I have talked to many of you several times, but I love TeacherCast. I love learning with you guys and learning alongside all of you. Of course, Matt and I would be really remorseful if we did not mention the House of EdTech. So have to give a big shout out to Chris Nessie. So the House of EdTech is one of my favorite podcasts, and that is also the reason why Matt and I decided to ask him to be our producer. So he is actually doing the technical side of our podcast and a lot of the behind the scenes work that Matt and I just flat out just couldn't do ourselves. So love working with Chris, and he has just been a great mentor and coach throughout the whole process, but highly recommend that you listen to his podcast.
Matt, you can't give that answer now.
Oh, Casey, see what you just did?
But you can still say you love TeacherCast. Just everything else after that, you're good with.
Okay, I love TeacherCast.
Okay, good.
Okay, there. No, I really do love TeacherCast. It was one of the first education podcasts that I started listening to several years ago. I remember is the first time I listened to it. But it isn't even just educational podcasts that got me hooked on this medium. In fact, I'll do quick shout outs to a couple of them that I really like outside of education. Like there's one called This Is Your Life by Michael Hyatt. That's about kind of like productivity and personal development and everything. And I love how he shares his personality. And then there's This American Life done by NPR, just because of the storytelling ability and how Ira Glass can just dig into these little details and make them really interesting. And then there's Planet Money, which is also on NPR, that does a really good job of taking an interesting angle on something and giving you all the little details to make it fascinating. And then there's also the NPR TED Radio Hour. That's another one of my absolute favorites, because it'll take a single topic and look at it through all these different lenses, and just the creativity and the craft that goes into putting a show together exactly the way that you want it. To be able to ask interesting questions, that's kind of the stuff that really got me hooked on podcasting as a medium, I think.
Sam, how about yourself? I mean, you and I were doing this for a long time, and then you had said, let's start a show. And that was really, really cool. What was the big turn on for that? And what is inspiring you to continue doing stuff with the microphone?
I have to say the biggest thing is it just gives the work that you're doing legs, makes it easier for other people to interact with you when you're taking what you're doing and you're finding a way to put it out there. And when I'm asking my students day after day to take what they're doing and put it out there in one way or another, I just love the legitimacy of being able to say, well, no, you can see the work I'm doing, and to have kids come in and be like, oh, I found your podcast and I was listening to it. And it was like, wow, that's hard for me to believe, because I think it's probably boring even for teachers, but you found it and listened to it. That's amazing, right? And just that kind of interaction and essentially using the podcast to find a way into a community and be of some service to that community.
So we, of course, want to know what your favorite podcasts are and what you listen to, how you're listening to it, all those favorite things. We didn't even talk about favorite podcasting apps, but there's plenty more that we can do on future shows. Please reach out to us on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. We'd love to hear from you. Topics like this come up when you guys decide to use your voice and share with me what you want to hear on the shows. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for a great show. Let's do one more big round robin. Tell us where you are, how we can find you, and let's actually do that if I can do this in reverse order. Sam, where can we learn more about the great stuff happening in your neck of the woods?
mypaperlessclassroom.com, beyondthehourofcode.com, puppetstelljokes.com, and on Twitter I'm at SAMPATUE.
Josh.
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. G Fact of the Day. And if you went to MrGFactoftheDay.com, you would find stuff there, but it's not pretty. It needs a lot of work. That might be a summer project.
Nice. Jennifer.
I'm at teachingforward.net, where I have resources and blog, and you can find me on Twitter at teachingforward.
Brent.
You can get me online, brentcoley.com. That's BRENTCOLEY.com. Also on Twitter at Brent Coley, and the new podcast Teaching Tales is in iTunes, Google Play, and also on my website.
Matt.
Of course, you can go to ditchthattextbook.com, which is all about technology, creativity, and innovation in the classroom with lots of practical ideas. Our fabulous new podcast is at googleteachertribe.com. Already stole that one from you, Casey. Sorry. And I am on Twitter at jmattmiller. That's the letter J, Matt with 2 T's, Miller.
And finally, Casey.
So you can find me at shakeuplearning.com, where I share lots of resources, lots of googly resources, but other things as well. I have tons of free ebooks, and I have some online courses to help teachers who are interested in becoming Google certified. So I have a lot of certification resources there as well. And I'm pretty much Shake Up Learning everywhere on social media. So Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus, Facebook, you can find me there. And yes, like Matt said, our googleteachertribe.com is our website. I also want to mention we do have a hashtag. It is GTTribe. And if you join our mailing list, you can become a VIP member of the Google Teacher Tribe, and we will send you a badge that says that you are now part of the tribe. So we are creating that community there.
And I do have to say, there are so many newsletters that I signed up for. And generally with my newsletters, I have them, Googled to automatically shift into a label and not hit the inbox. And I was going to say this, Casey, before you even mentioned it, but you have some of the nicest looking newsletters out there. And I love how they look. What is your newsletter platform, or how do you do those?
I use ConvertKit.
Really?
Yes, I do. And I really, thank you so much, but I really don't spend a whole lot of time with the fancy stuff anymore. I really just try to stick to, something that's easy to read and that teachers can skim through and get what they need. So that makes me feel good if that works for you.
I think they're fantastic. Definitely check out that stuff. We are looking forward to another great week. One of the things that we all do here is we connect on Twitter, we connect on social media, we catch up at these conferences, and there is a fantastic conference that's coming up here in just a few weeks called Ed Change Global. And if you're interested in learning more about it, check out our show next week, Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. We are going to be having everybody from the Ed Change Global team on here. Is anybody here presenting at Ed Change Global or working with? I wanted to see if we can do a little shout out for that. We are going to be learning all about that next week. Check that out again, January 31st, 8 o'clock on TeacherCast.tv. I want to give one more time a big shout out to everybody who was a guest and for checking us out live over on TeacherCast.tv, where we are here every single week. And our chat box was off the hook today. Peggy and Peg and Josh and Jennifer and Nessie and Scott and Matt and everybody who started today, thank you guys so much for doing all that stuff. On behalf of everybody here at the TeacherCast Educational Broadcasting Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.